Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Coffee and Careers. I am joined by a couple of really great guests this week, and I'm very excited to get started. As always, we're going to start off with our introductions. You all know me pretty well, but my name is Erica O'Toole, and I am an assistant director in the Career Development Center here at CMU. And I primarily work with our College of Education and Human Services. I also work with our First Impressions program here on campus, where we give free professional clothing to our students. So today, as we get started, we always share what we are drinking for our coffee as we're joining you today. It's already 12, but I'm still drinking my coffee, so I'll go ahead and share with that. We actually, exciting news in the Career Development Center, just got a coffee pot. Before we had a Keurig and it was kind of old and we weren't really using it. So we made a little coffee bar. And so I am drinking our freshly brewed coffee with some coconut cream creamer in my new Peace mug for the office. So really excited about that I can just walk across the hall and fill up my coffee mug now in the office and not have to walk across to Starbucks, even though that's pretty cool on campus too. So back full time in the office now. That's exciting. I love being here. And we're here on this Fire Up Friday. It's a beautiful day outside. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Zach to go ahead and introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Zach Evans, and I'm an academic advisor for the College of Education and Human Services. I primarily work with our undergraduate programs, so things like teacher education, fashion, interior design, recreation, probably missing a few, but a little bit of what I do. I am a little boring today and just have a glass of water with some of that nice squirt-in stuff. So basically adult Kool-Aid, but I'm excited to be here with you all.
All right. And then today we have our faculty guest because today we're talking about the Masters in Higher Education. So today with us, we have Dr. Matthew Johnson.
Hey, thanks, Erica, and thanks, Zach. My name is Matt Johnson. I am an associate professor in the Department of Educational Leadership here at CMU. I just finished my 9th year here of teaching at CMU, and I'm delighted to be here with you all today. Like Zach, I'm kind of boring. I have my water and my Yeti that I take fishing with me almost every weekend when I head out fishing, so I'm kind of boring like that. But I'm thrilled to be here. I study college students, and I study college student learning and development and how colleges work and how the college environment helps college students grow and develop in unique and interesting ways. And I'm thrilled to chat a little bit more about careers in higher ed and the program and what this kind of atypical career kind of looks like. So thanks for having me.
Very cool. And I think what's kind of unique to this Facebook Live is that, first of all, we all work in higher education, so we can kind of talk a little bit about that too. But Zach, you've gone through the program, so you can give a unique perspective on that as well. So as always, please feel free to put your questions in the chat. We definitely always want to answer your questions and hear from you. But we do have some questions prepared. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started by asking, what can I do with a degree in higher education?
Yeah, if you've gone to college and you've been an undergrad, for the most part, people tend to have really transformative experiences. They are different people than when they graduate than when they started. And a big part of that, of course, are the classes that you took and the really thought-provoking discussions you were a part of and that sort of thing. But for a lot of people, a lot of the transformation that they had was outside of the classroom. And there were educators there who weren't standing in front of a classroom, but were advisors, folks like Zach. They were people who worked in career, like Erica. There were people who were in the residence hall as residence hall directors. There were people who were part of the student organizations that they were a part of. Maybe they attended leadership conferences and all that kind of thing. And so for some folks too, they really found their home in an office on campus, like the LGBTQ Resource Center or something like that. And those folks tend to have master's degrees in higher education administration. They are folks who get to work in student life and leadership programs and academic advising and volunteer centers and career services and that sort of thing. So the kind of shorthand that I always tell people is it's the places where learning occurs outside of the classroom. And those are the types of careers that a degree in higher education administration prepares people for.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting because I know for me, when I was a student, I didn't even realize that, I saw all these people in the jobs, but I didn't realize it was a degree and I could actually do that. So I love that we're having this Facebook Live today so that students can think of this as a potential career path. Just because, with me now being in career development, I like to share with so many students, you can do this. This is such a fun career. It's just so many people don't necessarily think of it right off the bat.
Yeah, I've yet to meet a single person, Erica, who has told me I always wanted to be a higher education administrator when I grow up. It's always, always, always I found the career later in my college career or sometimes even afterwards.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I totally remember emailing Matt the November of my senior year, like, hey, is this graduate assistantship a thing? Is your program actually real? And that's what got the journey started for me. Funny how we get here. But question for you, Matt. What is the nature behind the work in higher education?
Yeah, I would say that it's context specific. Often it depends on what kind of job, and we'll talk more about that here in a second. But I always like to say that the nature is you're continuously creating context for learning. That's what our work is about. And it takes shape in all kinds of different things. Things like this that Erica and Zach are doing right now. This is their job. This isn't just something they're doing on their lunch break. And sometimes it's one-on-one with students, which I know Zach does a lot of. Sometimes it's about creating long-term kind of curriculum, like a 16-week or semester-long leadership program. Sometimes it's orienting a couple thousand new incoming students to our campuses, like we're getting ready to do here and well underway here at CMU. And so although the positions and the nature of the work is different, you can always expect, I think, a good amount of student interaction, some student-centeredness, trying to think about our work as benefiting student learning and their development. It's working to promote their well-being in different aspects, trying to make this their time here at their institution one that's centered on learning and centered on their development. There's a lot of adaptation happening right now, like it is everywhere else, in responding to COVID-19 and what the post-COVID-19, whenever we get to that point in time, what that looks like and how we meet students' needs. There's a lot of interaction with diversity and people who are different than you. The majority of people come from largely homogenous towns in our country, and colleges and universities, for a lot of people, is the most amount of diversity that there'll ever be around. And so there's a lot of people from different countries and different parts of the state and different religious beliefs and races and cultures and that sort of thing. And so that's exciting. And you get to figure out, how do you build learning environments and create learning environments that affirm those folks and that diversity, but also cater toward it and help people learn and develop in interesting ways. And many positions allow you to be innovative and creative and design things and reform what's not working well. And so we often find ourselves doing work that's kind of reflected in our job descriptions, but we have a lot of latitude to do the things that we want to do and how we might want to do them.
Definitely. And I think that's one of the things I love about higher ed is that my job, yes, most people think, oh, you just work at a desk because I have a cubicle. But that is so not true. I do something different all the time. I get to work with students, which I absolutely love. I think, that's why we're all here, right? It's so much fun interacting with students. But then I get to do things like this. How many people can say they get to be on Facebook Live as part of their job? What a fun, cool thing I get to do. So it's a really interesting and different industry, and it's so meaningful as well. I find so much purpose in my career, and so I think that's what really sets it apart. Matt, who are the typical students that apply to your program?
Yeah, we have two kind of students that typically apply to our program. The first are folks like me who I went to Saginaw Valley State University. I was a marketing major. I was sure I was going to go into business, and I was taking classes, but somewhere along the way, I got involved in the other things that were on campus. I got involved in my fraternity, which led to involvement in student government and eventually being president of the student government. And I was doing all these things on campus, and it wasn't until April of my senior year, getting ready to graduate, that I realized I liked kind of the stuff I was doing on the side more than I liked my marketing content and that kind of work. And the typical student then becomes people who had really transformative undergrad experiences, kind of the shorthand of the rock star student leader, right? The person who really invested in the institution and the institution invested a lot in them. And we get a lot of those folks. And we get a lot of those folks who often think it's way too late to apply, like Zach was mentioning, right? That happens all the time, the people who discover us late. And so we most often get that. That's our majority kind of profile of student that we get. And that's really wonderful. And we love seeing those kind of students. We often get students who were not the rockstar undergrad, and that's totally fine. What we get in this kind of second population is people who find themselves either completing their undergraduate degree, or maybe they've got some distance between after their undergraduate degree. They've been out a little while, and they're working in an industry, or they're working in something that isn't as fulfilling as they'd hoped it would be. And they really miss the vibrancy and excitement of a college campus. And they think about what it might look like to be back there, and they think about, gosh, that academic advisor that I had was so wonderful. Or when I was doing those leadership programs, that's when I really learned about myself, and I want to be able to do that for other people. And so we get those folks who apply. And what's really great about that group of folks too is that they need not uproot their entire career and come here to Mount Pleasant. They can, but they don't have to. They can credential themselves through a master's degree at a distance, which is really nice. And they want to help educate students outside the classroom and do that kind of work. And we get quite a few of those types of people as well.
That's awesome. So, you know, COVID has really shaped a lot of industries, right? We've seen it across multiple industries, not just higher education. But I guess I want to hear from you how higher education has really changed because of COVID.
Yeah, it's one of those trying to make some statements on something that's rapidly evolving, right? So I'll give you my best hot take here on the changes of higher ed related to COVID. You know, we're a year since this thing started, and we're a year and a few months when places like CMU pivoted to all online, and CMU was open, and we did face-to-face, and we had that for the whole academic year. We're asking a lot of questions about what does it mean to provide a robust out-of-classroom experience to students given this changing landscape. And that's the ultimate question that I think folks are trying to navigate. Students who were residential, meaning that they lived on a college campus, have always tended to have more of this robust college experience because much of what was offered happened on campus. It happened down in the common areas. It happened across campus. It happened in the university recreation building. It happened in the student center, things like that. But now much of what higher education is going to be in the future, and really has been in a lot of ways, and CMU's been on the forefront of distance education for decades, we've got to figure out what does it look like to provide robust out-of-classroom learning for folks at a distance. We have to figure out what that is. We know that, and we have tons of evidence that for the effectiveness of our programs, but you had to be here. Right. And we really have to think about how do we extend that and what does that look like? And then secondarily, I would say is COVID is another one of these things that we have a time in our history to pause and think about the disparities upon which this pandemic shined light on. Right. So We know around, how people were differently situated across race and socioeconomic status and country of origin in particular related to COVID. And we have to figure out what our role is in higher education to reduce disparities and combat oppression, and figure out what that looks like about gaining access to college and graduating from college. There's big disparities between people of color and white folks related to college access and graduating college. And it's incumbent upon all of us to lessen those disparities and close gaps. And we have to be thinking about what that looks like now. We should have been doing it forever, but COVID, I think, and what it brings afterward, I think calls us to deepen that kind of work and double our efforts on what that looks like to make higher education more equitable across the board.
Absolutely. Yeah, COVID kind of woke us all up, right? It was, just over the past year, so many things have happened. So I think not only for higher ed, but in general, but absolutely higher ed has really, really changed in general. And I think, I've seen so many adjustments within our own department, but I'm really happy you were able to touch on some of those as well as a whole. So if I'm a student and I'm thinking about higher ed as a career option, how can I best prepare myself?
Yeah, the thing I would immediately say is you need not be a 4.0 student. You need not be president of X, Y, and Z. You need not be all those things. We really want to see people who have had some meaningful involvements, not the most involvement, but meaningful involvement in their undergraduate career. People who try to improve their campuses in some way, shape, or form, who recognize that we could and should be doing better in our efforts in higher education. People who are committed to making a change. Maybe you were a transfer student and you didn't have a very good experience when you transferred, and you recognize the need for better transfer services and what that looks like. And those are the people we love. We love the folks who felt a lot of pressure to pursue X career, even though they didn't want to, and they stumbled a little bit. And then when they got into a major that they loved, they really thrived. And those folks are the people that we really love. So preparing yourself by meaningfully getting involved on campus and in the work that's happening, we love that. And there's only one undergraduate major in the entire country for higher ed administration or college student personnel. There's only one. And so every single person comes to this work with varied degrees, and there's no one degree better than another. I often get students who will write me and say, I'm really interested in the program, but I was an economics major. I just don't think it's going to be applicable. And I think, oh my goodness, please come apply to us. We want that perspective in the classroom. And that happens all the time. It's not just economics. And so, critical thinking, building those capacities for graduate level work is really important, right alongside the meaningful involvement in your campus, and recognizing that we as faculty love nothing more than to be in a classroom with people with diverse experiences, identities, majors, life backgrounds, all those kinds of things, because that's what makes our program really special.
Absolutely. And the meaningful experiences piece, because that's what we say to students so much. It's not about how much you can put on your resume. It's about those meaningful experiences that you can talk about, that you can really share with an employer, discuss with an employer. Same thing here with this program. Make sure you're involving yourself in meaningful things. So I'm glad you touched on that too.
Yeah, we will take meaningful things over all the things every day.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So Matt, I know you've done a little bit of work on my question, but what classes can students take to prepare for this program?
Yeah, if you would have asked me this question or asked any of our faculty members in our department, and we have 6 full-time people who do higher ed administration, if you would have asked us that question, we would have said, well, anybody can take one of our graduate courses. And, if you're a first-year student or second-year student, you would think, oh, I don't know that I really want to be doing that. And, that still remains an option. But one of the things we learned over time of doing this is that it would make a lot of sense if we had some undergrad classes that were focused on higher education, and you get to get your feet wet a little bit into what a career might look like, but you don't have to commit to being in a graduate program or even a graduate class. And so we developed 3 courses. One is race in higher education, another is gender in higher education, and the other is social class in higher education. Those are all EDL classes. EDL 216 is race, 274 is gender, and then 301 is our social class. And what's been really nice about those courses is that we embedded them in other within the undergraduate program, like the 4A and 4B and 4C that you all know way more about than I do. And we relied on all of you to help us navigate this because we were a graduate only department at the time. And so that those become really great ways that students can still fulfill their own degree requirements and get their major or their minors or whatever, but also kind of see if a career in higher education might be interesting. So for instance, I teach the race in higher education class, and we explore the racial history of higher education and the racial history of Central Michigan University. We look at controversial topics like what do we do with buildings that are named after people with racist pasts, and what do we do with racist college mascots, and what makes a mascot racist or not. And that becomes really great learning around not only higher education, but around just thinking about complexity and racism and who people are and how our society functions and that sort of thing. The gender class focuses again on the socialization and how gender operates within higher education. The 301 social class focuses on how socioeconomic status mediates our experiences while we're in college. And so these 3 undergrad classes became really great ways. All of them are currently taught in HyFlex, which means students can attend in person or do the online version. We're developing those for online delivery as well. But we also still do. We often have some students who are further along in their undergraduate career, or maybe people who have even graduated and maybe want to take a class and maybe think that a graduate class might be right up their alley and something they want to take on. And so we have graduate classes that start every 8 weeks. And we occasionally get some folks who pop into those. You need not apply to the program and be admitted to the program to take your graduate class, which is really nice and something I'm glad CMU offers. But all those become really good options for folks.
That's awesome. I'm actually doing orientation right now, the presentations for our students, and we talk about some of those like beginning exploratory classes and things like that. And those are some courses that I want to take. Those sound really interesting. So I'm glad you shared some of those with our students tuning in, because I think that would be a great way for students to kind of get their feet wet and understand what it's all about, and maybe pique some of their interest to understanding higher ed a little bit more. So that sounds really great. So I think, we've gotten through quite a few questions. It's hard to believe that we're almost done here, because I feel like we've just been having great conversation. But at the end here, I always like to ask for some final thoughts. So as we're kind of going through this, Zach, maybe do you want to share some final thoughts as maybe from the perspective of having gone through the program, to maybe a student perspective, like thinking about entering the program, and then Matt giving some final thoughts as well to some of our students out there.
Yeah, my best advice is to go talk with the faculty, go talk to Matt. That is a lot of what sold it for me in figuring out my career path. I was able to talk with folks and mentors, both formal and informal in my undergrad, and they helped push me towards this idea of student affairs. And then coming to CMU, one of the things that drew me here is that Matt was accessible, not realizing he's going to take a vacation or have some life come up at one point, but I was getting consistent emails with good information, and I was able to learn about what was unique about the program, any sort of pros, cons, considerations. And oftentimes I feel like working with undergrad students, faculty seem unapproachable. That is not the higher ed program. They want to talk to you. They want to help you find what your best fit is. Another nice part is that CMU does offer a few assistantships that can lead to having a program be fully funded. And that's a big part of higher education, is how can you get some of that work experience while furthering your education. So all kind of considerations when thinking about how to choose a program. And once you're in a program, the best thing I can recommend is get involved, talk to people outside of your little circle of existence. Is higher ed is vast, and that's one of the things that drew me. Is it's not just one career path, it's a whole bunch of different functional areas and places to dive into, and that's one part that I've really enjoyed about higher ed. But yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach.
The thing that I would offer there is to say that there are a lot of really difficult problems in our world, and a lot of difficult problems within higher education around degree attainments. We know that about only 59% of people who start bachelor's degrees will finish them. We know that based on different identities like race and class and gender, people report feeling more or less welcome and affirmed while they're in college. We know that we have a lot of work to do on the learning that we provide, but these are all things that we love working on. That's an exciting kind of puzzle to try to make some headway on. And you can make a huge difference in people's lives and in our world by taking on these really difficult problems. And that's what keeps me in higher education in the past, I don't know, maybe 17 years, if I can do math quickly in my head, is trying to work on these really vexing problems of how do we create and graduate more folks who have equity-based mindsets, who want to make the world a better place, who are ready for varied kinds of employment in the work that they do, who can work across difference, who can innovate. That work is really, really exciting, even if it's difficult work. And the problems are seemingly difficult. It's exciting work, and I get to do research and be with great students, and it's a very fulfilling and exciting career.
Absolutely. And just to kind of piggyback off that as well, very fulfilling work. I absolutely love working with students. I love personally being able to see them get jobs, because that's a part of what I do, seeing them become successful in what they do. And then the other part of that is you have so many people on this campus you can reach out to ask them what working in this field is like. So, you know, ask people like Zach, ask people like me what they like about their jobs when you kind of find an area in higher ed that you're gravitating towards. We're more than happy to talk to you. We're more than happy to have you maybe even job shadow us or do an informational interview. So reach out to the resources you have, because there's so many of them here at CMU for you. So again, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Matt, for joining us. Really, it was a pleasure to have you on with us today. Thank you, Zach, for being here today as well. It was great to have you. And thank you both for joining me on this Friday. It's a lovely day out, and it was really great to hear more about the program in higher education and chat with both of you. So I hope you all have a wonderful day. If you have questions, we will monitor the comments on this Facebook Live when it gets posted as well. So feel free to comment, and we will see you on our next edition. So everyone have a wonderful Friday, and thank you for joining us.